if they were able to avoid some silly turnovers in the second half of that game, if they didn't go about 6 or 7 minutes without making a shot from the field, they had Kentucky dead to rights.
Now, that is the exact game that Lamont wants to play, right?
I can imagine he actually thoroughly enjoyed when that game was tied and we were in the high 40s.
It was like 51-49. It's like
with about 6 minutes left. Oh, I could almost feel his excitement.
That's what I assumed as I was watching
in the building, right? Especially considering they're an underdog. Kentucky's in the house. It's a bring your own energy game because there were probably more Kentucky fans there than South Carolina fans.
Let me pause you right there. I assume, because they did a pretty good job, I assume the crowd wasn't optimal in the building last night.
Very nice way of putting it.
Okay. Because they did a good job of disguising that on the broadcast. So that's one.
Professionals.
Yes, they did a good job of that. Two, that being said, there probably weren't as many Carolina fans, but I don't think I saw as many Big Blue fans either.
They were better spread out, I would say. Of course, they had their section, and then there were a lot of people, I guess, in the upper bowl, and then kind of sporadically out. And there was maybe only like 2 times the Go Big Blue chant broke out because I don't think they feel great about their team either.
Right. That was my assumption.
Yeah, at least they shouldn't feel good about their basketball team because that was a $22.5 reportedly $1 million roster that is pretty much comprised of a lot of 6 men that they're putting in starting positions. Now, I will say Denzel Aberdeen for them played great. That was one of their big money guys, but it's taken him all year to kind of develop into a point guard. They don't have a true point guard because the one they did get in the transfer portal to be that true point guard this year has been out.
Well, so we're just, I've watched a decent amount of college basketball up to this point. This is the first time I've watched Kentucky in a full game, and they are not it. When I watched Arizona, I watched Arizona 3 times. I've watched Houston twice. I watched Kansas the other night. I watched Duke. So I'm talking about the teams that are at the top of this list. Kentucky's not that.
Yeah, totally different feel with those teams because they have a national championship ceiling. Like Kansas could win a national championship depending on which version of the Kansas Jayhawks shows up. If it's with Darren Peterson, and he's healthy and playing 40 minutes and is engaged. Guy's as good as anybody. They actually have a really good team around him, too, that could pull something like that off. But, like, Michigan, I would consider having a really good chance of winning the national title. Duke, feeling better and better about that one every day. They are dangerous.
Yeah, and so when I watched the game last night, when we're playing Kentucky, I'm not looking at that roster, the old, how coaches say, I wouldn't rather have anybody else. I'm not saying that, but I wasn't looking at that roster being extremely envious.
No.
I was looking at that roster and I was like, okay, they don't look much different than a roster which I don't think we've pretty much unanimously said is not a great roster. The Kentucky roster, reportedly worth $22 million, at least that's what they paid, did not look very different to me when I watched that game last night.
No, I mean, it ended up like the final score was 72-63. So like Kentucky ends up winning this thing technically by 9 points, but that's not the spiritual score. I think the spiritual score is probably Kentucky by 5.
Yes,
because it was neck and neck throughout a large portion of this game.
Can I also say something else, Elijah?
Ooh, yes.
You didn't get a chance. So you were at the game, correct?
Correct.
So you were not watching the broadcast.
I was not.
I believe with 2 minutes left, Kentucky's is tight. I forget what the exact score was. Kentucky gets the ball, and the announcer says, "Floppy action!"
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I know what that means.
I know that.
I know what that means. I know what that means.
Great feeling.
I felt very good when the announcer yelled floppy action, and I knew exactly the play that they were running.
You feel like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where he's got his beer in hand. He starts snapping his fingers and pointing at the TV.
That's exactly how I felt. And they ran floppy action, and I think they eventually ended up scoring off of it. Kind of came off the screen, slipped, and that's that dunk that they got at the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's it.
Got the lob from it.
I was like, ooh, that is it.
the basketball dork community here, it is really fun to look at how floppy action has evolved since the early 2000s and exactly how it's used.
He just yelled it out, floppy action. I was like, oh, I see it. I see it.
Was Rodney Terry the one on the call?
I don't know.
I was just saying, it's got to be a former
him.
coach. Yeah, a former coach that's probably screaming something out like that as it's happening. But I will say, like, in terms of South Carolina and looking at their performance too, I can only be so mad at the players. You can only be so disappointed. I get being disappointed in that game because you could have won it. And it's incredible the fact that you could have won it considering you scored 6 points in the final 10 minutes of the first half. And you went on an incredibly bad scoring drought. And you played maybe one of your worst offensive halves of basketball, and you went into the break against Kentucky down 7. It probably should have been about 14. Again, that's also, I think, a larger indictment of the limit of Kentucky's offense. But defensively, against an offense that does so much off-ball movement, the occasional floppy action, but a lot of zoom action where the big man's at the top of the key and they're going into a dribble handoff after that player comes off a down screen. They run a lot of zoom action. They do a whole lot of off-ball cutting and all. I will say, like, for Mark Pope's roster design flaw, which I think is going to be what ails them the rest of the season and keeps them from being able to win a game or two in the NCAA tournament, the guy can draw it up. Because I think after every timeout, they scored. Almost every out of bounds underneath, they scored or got a really good shot. However, South Carolina, I thought, played their off-ball actions for Kentucky about as well as you could do. And that was probably about as connected defensively as South Carolina played. And if you just looked at the possessions in that game, if we ended every possession with the shot, and South Carolina gets the defensive rebounds, they hold Kentucky probably to under 50 last night. That's how good they were defensively. But when the other team is getting about 20 points on second chances and they're grabbing almost half their missed shots, it kind of kills a lot of what you do defensively. It renders that part of your game useless. I think that's what happened last night.
This is something that I hadn't considered. I hadn't heard explained until Lamont explained it earlier this year. You just said it. Like, the possession doesn't end with the shot. It ends with the rebound. That sounds elementary.
Right.
But for some reason when he said it was like, oh, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Because you can force a team into a bad shot, but it's not over yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they did that a lot last night where they got Kentucky to take a bad shot or they forced them deep into the shot clock. But that's not the end of the possession. The end of the possession is when you get the ball, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, Kentucky, in terms of offensive rebounds last night, grabbed 18 of them. And even after some of those rebounds, they were able to get additional stops. Sometimes they had to stop Kentucky twice on one possession because Kentucky ended up with only 14 second chance points is what it's charted as. But those 14 points made a pretty big difference. I mean, that was a plus 10 differential in second chance points. I think that made a pretty big difference in this game. And unfortunately for South Carolina, I think that's only a reflection of how far you've been behind everybody else, is that you have made substantial growth on the defensive side of the ball. You were more connected last night than I've seen them in a game all season long. They communicated a lot of really difficult actions to guard. Last night, Lamont talked about conceptually, they're starting to pick things up. Like, they are now learning the concept as to why we're going to do this defensive coverage, why we're switching, why we're doing all of this. And if you know why, you're going to be able to guard it better. I mean, it makes total sense. But as good as they were fundamentally on defense last night, as good as they were switching a lot of those off-ball actions, and even when they got mismatches, still playing really well defensively on a mismatch, the fact that you still can't bank that into winning the game because you still can't do the final part of the possession sometimes is just a reflection of just how far behind you are. A lot of teams in college basketball, when they do make that type of growth throughout the season, you see them finally put it together on defense. It's going to reflect in the numbers more because they're at least able to finish out the possession. But this team had a problem for many stretches of the year, not playing good defensively and not finishing the possession. And now you're playing them well, but still not finishing the possession. And it's still going to result in a 9-point loss at home.
Yeah. And last night was the first time that I've watched the team this year and I was like, oh, we just don't have enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. That was the first time where the effort was unquestionable. You know, the assignments were good. They were connected and all that. But I think there were 3 sort of possessions in a row, and they might not have been in a row, but this is just off the top of my brain. Michi had an ISO, penetrates, throws the ball into the stands.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Had Mike Charjump. So
had him
open for a 3.
Had him open for a 3, throws it into the stands. Very soon after that, Eli comes down, pump fakes, makes a really solid move, has a fadeaway jumper has created a shot for himself, misses. And then after that, Elijah Strong in the post, misses, gets the board, kicks it out, misses the 3. And it was like 3 possessions where they got the shots that were available to them. And this is when the game was tighter. It was like 59, 57 or something in that range.
Still about a one-possession game.
One possession game, and they just could not get the shot to either fall or even get the shot. And that's when I was like, oh, we just don't have enough.
And that was kind of when I was starting to figure it out, too, because I knew you couldn't keep holding them for long because they still had timeouts. There were still going to be times which the game has stopped. And again, I think Kentucky's best strength last night was not in a half-court offense when they're bringing the ball up the floor. It was when Mark Pope had 30 seconds to draw something up. Because I swear, I think it was every single after timeout, or ATO, as you'll hear it referenced on broadcast, every single ATO Kentucky scoring. And that's just because Mark Pope is a genuinely good X's and O's coach, right? And I knew at some point you were going to get those situations, and if you couldn't score on the offensive end, then you weren't going to be able to drag yourself back to win this game. And I think the thing that's really frustrating, too, is that despite giving up a lot of the rebounds that they did, despite not finishing those defensive possessions, it was still as close as it was. And I think I said yesterday, that you got to hit 35, 36% of your threes to win
37.
this game. 37. I even bumped it up because I baked in the fact that Kentucky's going to score because they at least have a high floor. They are at their floor offensively, and that's still top 40 in the country, but that's still, their floor. They're still going to get their own. You got to be able to shoot with them sometimes, as someone like Colin Chandler or Denzel Aberdeen go on a heater, and Aberdeen did. But you go 27.6% from 3 last night, 8 for 29, and you were still in this game. You might have gotten away with winning that game at 34%. You probably could have gotten away with it at 33%. And I think out of the 7 3-pointers Elijah Strong took, I think all 7 of them were open, and he just missed all of them. There were a couple of times Michi had an open look, just missed it. Eli Ellis had a couple of open looks, missed them. Poor Norden Capich, they're leaving him open for a reason. Yeah. And there are a couple times where my old high school basketball coach would call those scuds, like a scud missile, because of how hard it's hitting the backboard. And because it wasn't like any of the shots that Capich took were not open. They were open.
Yeah. And that's why I kind of felt like after watching that game last night, I was like, oh, we just don't have enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that makes you feel good, bad, or indifferent, or whatever the case is. Probably indifferent after the season that we've had. But I was like, oh, we just don't have enough.
It's never a good sign when you can tell that basketball game that you lost, even though you were the team that played harder, you played, I think, more fundamentally sound defense. I think you got just as good of quality of shots as they did. You lost this game over the summer when it came to building the team together because you don't have the guys that can make those shots. And once again, we've seen them shoot under 30% from 3 in a game in which shooting over 30% would probably win it for you. But coming up next, we'll take a look at the 4 factors in this game and see exactly how this thing was lost, as well as if there's anything we can take from that information that tells us that this team has had some growth this year. We'll do that next here in the early game.
Pressing here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. If your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, No problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with your insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work. It does not matter. Absolute Glass will come out to you and take care of the job for you. Now, if you're at home, you're looking to increase the value of your home, Absolute Glass can take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. We say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Not seeing any significant slowdowns right now. We will keep you updated if anything changes in that respect. And as far as your forecast goes, we are looking for a little bit warmer conditions than we have had, and we will welcome that. Cloudy 64 today. Now, might see some afternoon or evening rain tomorrow, 64 for the high. Some morning rain on Friday, but a high of 60. And 67 for a high on Saturday, maybe even in the 70s on Sunday. But right now, cooler start, 41.
Now, we do have a big baseball series this weekend. And on Saturday, from 1 to 2:30, myself and Tyler Head are going to be live from Seger Park. We're doing a show. It's basically college baseball game day, Preston Thorne.
Okay. I like that.
Haven't got to do this in like 2 years. It's so much fun.
That's going to be fun.
That's fun.
I mean, baseball's fun.
It is.
It's supposed to be anyway.
It's a keyword.
Good call.
Key phrase here. It's supposed to be fun.
Good call.
And if Tom Hanks taught you anything, is that there's no crying in it. So if you're not having fun, you keep the tears and you shed them at home.
There's no crying in baseball.
Thank you. There's none. So you know what Tyler and I are not going to do? We're not going to cry on air. Mm-hmm. We'll just do it off. Mm-hmm. Do it off air.
Now, what time are y'all going to be there?
We are going to be there from 1 to 2:30.
That's before time's, I wasn't going to say kickoff. What time's first pitch?
If you're looking for kickoff, you'll be going to the wrong place. First pitch for that game on Saturday night is going to be, well, pregame's 2:45, so about 3 o'clock.
Gotcha.
Yes, and that could be heard on WOMG because the men's basketball team is tipping off at 3 o'clock against Georgia in Athens on the same day, so they'll be heard here on the game. And when it comes to that basketball team again, last night taking a tough loss, but what I like to do too is when I look at kind of like the 4 factors of how a team wins and loses games, these are the things that win you and lose you basketball games. Very statistically proven. If you are not as familiar, you're a first-time listener, I highly suggest Googling the 4 factors. And Dean Oliver, the guy who's kind of the father of basketball analytics, did a study like many moons ago. I mean, this was probably in the 90s. And this is the correlation of what the things that you have to do to win and lose basketball games. You do 3 of these 4 things, you're probably going to win. If you even just do effective field goal shooting particularly well, you can get away with maybe not doing some of the other stuff as well. But this was part of what he found. This is me trying to sum it up as fast as I can to not get everybody lost in it. But I like to look at these things kind of throughout the course of the year and see a pattern. And what are the things that you're normally winning? What are the things that you're losing? How are you losing these games? And throughout the course of the year, are you getting better at any of them? Right? Is there substantial growth in one or the other? So last night when it came to effective field goal shooting, South Carolina was 43.8%. And I will go ahead and say this is a very below average shooting night for both teams, not just because of what they've been doing on the season, but because the NCAA average is 51%. South Carolina was at 43.8. Kentucky was at 44.7. Pretty even, right? If that's your effective field goal shooting number, then you're not separated by more than a percentage point. You are in the game.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter
by how you shoot.
It doesn't matter if I'm below average, if you're below average too.
Yeah, we're in this together, buddy.
There you go.
And we now are both in a position to have to find a way to win. But now here's the big one. This is the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. Offensive rebounding percentage. Kentucky grabbed 43.9% of their missed shots last night. South Carolina grabbed only 14% of their missed shots.
That's way bigger than I anticipated.
And if you just want to even take the percentages out, now I do like the percentages because one team can turn the ball over more and just not have as many shots. So if you grab a higher volume of them, it's still very impactful. But it also is eye-opening when you just look at the regular numbers. Kentucky grabbed 18 offensive boards, South Carolina 5. And then you go to turnover percentage. South Carolina turned the ball over on 16.7% of their possessions. Kentucky on 20.9%. So Kentucky was turning the ball over 1 out of every 5 possessions. Free throw rate, South Carolina, 0.3 free throws per every shot from the field. Kentucky, 0.27. So if you're South Carolina, you won turnover percentage, you won the free throw rate battle, and you were very comparable in effective field goal shooting. If this was the 3 factors as opposed to 4, this is a neck and neck game. The separator is the rebounds. And then ultimately, when you lose the second chance point battle by 10, you lose the game by 9, that sticks out a little more than it would normally. And I think that's one thing, if when you look at these type of things throughout the year, it's on a game-by-game basis, oftentimes you're looking at the offensive rebound percentage battle and saying that's what cost you a game. Sometimes this year it was effective field goal shooting. I remember when we were after the Florida game, the astronomical difference between Florida and South Carolina was so large, right, that that's a non-starter. You're never going to win a game that way.
Okay, so they're losing the offensive rebound battle. I know it's a combination of the two, right? Mm-hmm. But what is this more, a skill or will issue when you're losing the offensive rebound battle?
I think it is. I think earlier in the season it was will.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of games this year where you can go back and look. Arkansas, one of those games where you got worked. One team worked you to the ball, and you weren't strong with it when you came down with it, or you were out of position. I think positioning a lot this year. So there's a little bit of skill involved there too, because part of playing defense when the shot goes up, are you in a position where you can put a body on somebody and get a good angle towards the ball? I think last night was definitely a skill thing.
And what does that consist of?
I think it is exactly positioning. I think they played hard to try to get them. Positioning and then also strength. Like, there's a difference between being able to bench press a lot of weight, but can you wrestle the ball away from somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know of many basketball players who aren't going to win any weightlifting competitions. They're never going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're never going to win any Mr. Universes. But you know what? They could be out-muscled by like 30 pounds against somebody they're playing with, but their playing strength is when that ball goes up in the air, you're not getting it out of their hands.
Mm-hmm.
There is a level of dog you have to have. I think inherently this team lacks a lot of that, and they have a hard time getting in position when the shot goes up. And Lamont said that after the game last night, I'm going to try to devise a defense that is just going to put somebody in position to be able to rebound when the shot goes up. He's like, that's what I'm going to do all day tomorrow, is try to figure that part out. And that's maybe one of the hardest things about game planning your defense, is what position you're going to be when the shot goes up. And it's going to change with every shot too. If I shoot from the outside, more than likely, it's going to be a longer rebound. If I'm getting a shot near the basket, the rebound's probably going to be made within 5 feet of the basket. Physics, just the natural physics of the game. I think this team really struggles when it comes to having that functional strength of getting the ball from somebody when the ball comes off the rim. And I also think they oftentimes are in really bad position to rebound, to be able to put a body on somebody. So if there's any type of size advantage or strength advantage the other team has, they're going to get it. Because when you look at the overall season too, the totality of the year, South Carolina's grabbing 26% of their missed shots. Their opponents are grabbing 33. Not oftentimes are you losing that battle. And to give you a kind of perspective on where that ranks, that's 320th in the country in offensive rebounding percentage. That is 292nd in defensive.
Basketball numbers always shock me because I'm used to football numbers. So you hear somebody say that 320th, I'm like, there's that many teams playing?
Yeah, and you know what? There's so many teams. That's only better than about 40 teams in college basketball. And I can promise you right now, those 40 teams are probably in the Summit League or the Ohio Valley Conference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a Power 4 team that struggles to get their own missed shots worse than South Carolina. And that's a huge issue this year. And when I just pulled it up just for bleeps and giggles, Nebraska somehow worse, but Nebraska does a lot of things really well. Miami, Ohio is worse, but the only undefeated team in college basketball. But in terms of Power 4 opponents, or Power 4 teams, the only 2 teams in college basketball that rebound the ball worse on the offensive side of the ball is California and Nebraska. Just 2.
But Nebraska's good, though.
But Nebraska is really good because they also do a lot. They also shoot the lights out.
Gotcha.
So they don't have to rely on that.
They're surprised when they miss. They're like, I don't know what to do. We missed.
I was running back on the other end. I didn't know this ball wasn't going to go in the basket. Yeah, that's the season Nebraska's had so far. They're actually really good. But coming up next, can we breathe a sigh of relief when it comes to South Carolina's most prized offensive lineman transfer portal prospect? Well, Shane Beamer gives us an update, and we'll hear from Shane coming up next here in the early game.
At 60 degrees today It was 23 on Monday. That is going to be a problem for your HVAC system. So you might need to call the folks at AAA Heating and Air. They can get you set up and ready to go. If you're a small business owner, if you're part of a church, or you're responsible for an organization that relies on having a dependable HVAC system, the folks at AAA Heating and Air can help you. And right now, they're offering guaranteed financing to qualified organizations. That makes it easier for you to upgrade or replace your light commercial HVAC system without any upfront cost. Also, you get 12 months, no interest, and you'll get a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. That's 15 years. AAA Heating and Air specializes in helping churches, small businesses, and light commercial spaces. Getting started is easy. Just call AAA Heating and Air for a quote or visit AAAtoday.com.
One accident in Lexington that you might want to be aware of, and that's Main Street between Swartz and Krebs Streets. Aside from that, traffic moving along fairly well this morning. Forecast looking a little milder than it has been. Breezy and mild today, 64 for the high. Some afternoon showers tomorrow, some potentially heavy. 65 for the high, some showers again, possibility of some being heavy on Friday. 62. By the weekend, we're looking at 67 on Saturday and potentially 75 for Sunday. Right now, definitely warmer than it was yesterday, 41 on 107.5 The Game.
So we started off the week with the rumor that turned into the fact, and that is that Jacarius Peak did suffer an injury in an offseason activity. And the severity of it was unknown, and I think that's what made it scary. That's what makes anything like that scary, because it's not just like it's any offensive lineman. It's the guy that you got from the transfer portal from NC State who everybody else wanted. Sometimes you can maybe gauge if a transfer portal player is any good just by looking at who else is vying for his services. On3/Rivals had him as the number 1 offensive lineman available in the transfer portal. You had a heavy emphasis on rebuilding your offensive line in the transfer portal. So to say that Jacarius Peak was an important pickup would be the understatement of the day. Well, the news comes out over the weekend that he indeed was injured in an offseason activity. So when Shane Beamer spoke to the media yesterday to introduce Matthew Smiley as the special teams coordinator, we finally got to get a little bit of an update, and this was the update that Shane Beamer gave us yesterday.
We did have an injury last week to Jacarius Peak. Unfortunate, certainly. He will miss spring practice. He will not be fully cleared in the summertime, but we fully anticipate him being ready to roll when September rolls around. He's in great spirits. Just communicated with him before I walked in here, and knows that this is an opportunity for him to be even better as a player, mentally, physically, as we go into the 2026 season. Yes, he did sustain his injury playing basketball, the same 3-on-3 basketball tournament that we've done 3 years in a row now.
So confirmed that it was during a basketball game, confirmed that he is going to miss spring practice, which we already knew that because of the statement that he gave to the Post and Courier. But they expect him back during the season. Might not be fully cleared over the summer, but hearing all of that, I feel good about his chances of playing in SEC play. And the fact that you're going to get him back during the season is a huge sigh of relief, because maybe it's just the small pessimism in me. Had a feeling that if we didn't know the timetable, it's probably because it's not a good timetable.
Well, Elijah, I'm going to have to take the small pessimist in you and pull out the big pessimist in me.
Oh, no. You're BPing me?
Big P. I'm mogging you up.
I'm getting pessimism mogged right now?
I think you are.
Is that what's happening?
I think it's happening. We still don't know, man. We don't know whether he's going to have surgery. We don't know what the injury exactly is. I am hesitant to believe that, not to believe. I believe whatever Shane says. I'm not saying that. But you just don't know. There's so many unknowns throughout the recovery process for whatever this is. So if he's not cleared in the summer, when does he get cleared physically to play? How much has he missed? What can he do while he's not cleared, as far as, he's missing reps in the spring, he's missing reps in the summer, he's not taking those reps. And so it's just, to me, it feels like it's a longer process than just, he'll be ready to go whenever he gets cleared, because we don't know what the injury is. And even from that, playing after an injury does take a little bit of, it takes a little bit of a different skill set than maybe you previously had. So I'm glad that it's not necessarily, we haven't ruled everything out. It's not career ending, or it's not necessarily season ending, but I just know the road to recovery is not a straight path.
And to me, it's two things. I feel the optimist in me says that, okay, this guy's played a lot of college football. Mm-hmm. He knows how to get his body ready. If this is a true freshman, I would be like, okay, if you've never experienced this type of adversity before, how are you going to handle this?
Yep.
So at least Jacarius knows what needs to be done to get yourself ready to play a college football season. The negative to me isn't as much as what he's going to be like physically once he returns, or how long that ramp-up process is. To me, it's the fact that offensive line is such a chemistry-based unit.
That too.
To me, that would be my bigger concern, other than just physical limitations and capabilities, because I think even 70% of Jacarius Peak is an addition to this team. Even a 50% Jacarius Peak is probably an addition to this football team. It makes you better than if he just wasn't here at all. But what does it look like when he comes back and he has to play with a bunch of offensive linemen he's never played before? If you miss the spring and you miss fall camp, how much are you going to be able to get up to speed in terms of what everybody does when in terms of understanding communication patterns with your guard next to you?
We've talked about that a lot.
Because of how many times we talk about not being able to communicate during stunts and twists throughout the season. It happened pretty frequently, and you don't have to be Steve Spagnuolo last year to dial up a defense that was going to get to the backfield for South Carolina. You didn't have to get too fancy with it. Now we're kind of at a point, too, where I think you probably have more talent now than you might have had last year. Maybe. I don't know if talent even was the issue last year, but the communication part is going to be even more vital because at least those guys last season, for the most part, a lot of them have played with each other, with the exception of the interior linemen. Is there going to be a learning curve in that respect? Because if there is, then we might see some similar results that we did last year. That's my bigger concern, other than the physical aspect of it, I think is the chemistry and communication aspect that does take maybe some time to organically build on an offensive line.
And that's it. That's the thing about being in the locker room, being part of a unit, is that when you're hurt, yes, you can go to the meetings, yes, you can be with the team, but you're not in the group. You're just not. Like,
you're not on the field.
Because you're not on the field. And so all of the stuff that you're involved in, it's not that anybody's excluding you. It's just that you're just not doing all the things that we're doing. And so when we're going through this ridiculous drill that the strength coach is putting us through, you're not doing it. You're doing your stuff over here and you're breaking it down with us. There's just something a little bit that's off. And so that's going to be something that they're going to have to intentionally work on, incorporating him into the group as much as possible so that when he is cleared, he can be ready to go. I just say it's not as straight line as possible, but it's not the worst news that we could have gotten.
Coming up next, what do Magic Johnson and Joe DeCamillis have in common? I'll let you think about that because we're going to tell you what they have in common coming up next here in the early game. What do Magic Johnson and Joe DeCamillis have in common? It's quite the question because one is a Hall of Fame point guard, one of the greatest athletes in the history of American sports. The other, longtime special teams coordinator in the NFL and a special teams coordinator for a couple of years here in Columbia, South Carolina. But I'll let Magic tell you what exactly it is that they have in common.
I've been talking to people walking here. We've been talking about next year, and I'm sitting there saying, I'm not going to be here.
I'm not going to be here.
I'm not going to be here.
It cracks me up every time.
Winner
It's so
every
funny.
time.
That just, I'm not going to be here. Well, why do we say that? Because, I mean, for over a week now, we've known Joe DeCamillis is not going to be here. But apparently, according to Shane Beamer, they've known a little bit longer. This is going to be cut 11, Jen, him talking about hiring Coach Smiley and when he knew he was going to have to fill a void in special teams coordination.
Fired up to add him to our program. Like I said, first of all, I want to thank, Dr. Amaritas, Thad Westbrook, and Jeremiah Donati, Jeff Crane for their support and throughout this process. Extremely supportive, whether it be in any way to help us get the best person in here to keep this thing rolling. With the opening that we had on special teams, I had about a week and a half, 2-week notice. I don't want to say notice, but 2-week inkling maybe is a better word, that we were going to have an opening or could potentially have an opening. So it gave me some time to, do some lead work and get it ground up, researching a lot of people and talking to a lot of people about a lot of people. And in regards to Coach Smiley, who I did not know personally, I just knew of, it's amazing how many people reached out to me that I respect. And again, when I hire a coach, it's not, who I get the most references on and who gets the most phone calls, but it was pretty remarkable the number of people that I respect, that I think a lot of, whether it be NFL head coaches, NFL general managers, NFL special teams coordinators, current and former players that have played for him that I know and respect that reached out to me about him. As I've coached at different places, Georgia, Oklahoma, here most recently, and you have relationships with players that are playing professionally, you can reach out to them. So there was a great resource right here in Columbia, and Patrick DeMarco, who played for Coach Smiley in Buffalo, and what Pat said went a long way.
So you found a reason why Shane was interested in Coach Smiley, but also he had a couple of weeks of Joe DeCamillis maybe hitting him with the Magic Johnson. I'm not going to be here.
My favorite thing to come out of that whole statement, yes, we understand, Shane, appreciate the references, I get it, all that's awesome. But the idea of he made the very acute distinction between having notice and having an inkling. Because notice would say that Joe DeCamillis went into the office and said, hey, Shane, I have a couple prospects here. I'm looking to maybe see what's going to happen. That's not what Shane said. Shane said he had an inkling, which means Joe D was acting funny around the office.
Long lunches, sneaky phone calls,
Door
text messages
closed.
and giggles.
Some funny business was going down where he could have an inkling of like, I don't think Joe's going to be here too. Like, I don't know whether Joe didn't show up or he showed up late or he
Actually, his office started getting really clean.
There you go.
Yeah, all of a sudden, again,
carrying a box here and there or a bigger bag as he walks out. Yeah.
making the phone calls, he starts smelling a little better. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Like, you got a haircut?
Yeah,
What's
a
going
haircut,
on?
you know.
Why you wearing a suit today, Joe? What's going on?
Joe usually has like the 5 o'clock shadow, and it's like, you are cleanly shaven today. Why is that?
Just the idea of I had an
Not that any of us
inkling.
have ever done any of this before.
And that is my favorite
Not
part.
versed in this.
That's my favorite part. I would like to know, have you ever participated in the I'm not going to be here? When you were either advancing to a new position or leaving a job, I would just like to know via text, what were some of the signs that you may have seen where you knew either you weren't going to be there or you knew one of your coworkers weren't going to be there?
I'm not going to lie. There was one time where it was a day. It was an absolute day at a certain radio station I worked at. And during a commercial break, I had nothing to do. I was producing. A LinkedIn tab did open up on my laptop. And let's just say I changed the profile picture to one that was a little more modern, a little more recent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, Elijah, yeah, you really made some changes to your LinkedIn profile. Yes, I did.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's all I want to know via text. Just text us in either times you may have participated or times even better when you notice your coworkers. Maybe just like you said, cleaning out the office a little early, taking longer lunch breaks, showing up a little bit late to the meetings or whatever. Because it is a natural thing. I know when I left the school that I was teaching, I knew I was leaving in March of that year, and so we're still having meetings about the next year, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be here.
I'm not going to be here.
I don't know what y'all are doing. I'm not gonna be here.
You do kind of mentally check out. It's like you're super hyper focused and invested while you're doing the job. But once you know there's an end date, there's an expiration date to this, yeah, it's a little bit, you see things just very differently. Things get more annoying. For sure. Yeah.
Or like if you're one of those people that is a little more like high strung and something happens that
And
like
you're
requires,
chill.
and you're just way too chill about it, it's like, you're way too relaxed about this.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, if you guys see me calm, start to worry.
I'm going to be like,
Okay.
oh no, Jen's
really
got a
worried.
golden parachute. She's out of here. Jen doesn't want to kill me.
Yeah, this isn't good.
This isn't good.
There's no Nerf gun in the office. What's happening?
Immediately the red flags will start waving a little bit. I can imagine like there's probably some people, you know, like in their jobs, hey, dude, we have a presentation in a week. Are you not concerned about this? Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, I'll get on it. Are you?
Hey, Joe D, spring practice is coming up in 2 weeks. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, practice plan's already ready. And he looks over at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and goes, for my first training camp back
In the NFL.
in the NFL.
Joe, what do you think about NIL? I don't care.
Yeah.
The only acronym I'm concerned of is NFL, buddy. Oh, Joe, I heard you're going to Vegas for vacation. Well, I might be there a little longer. Might have taken a job there.
Vacation, house hunting, it's all
House
the
hunting.
same.
Yeah, what's
All
the
the
difference?
same.
I might just be going just to look.
Yep.
I hear Henderson, Nevada is nice this time of year.
Exactly.
An
that's
inkling.
amazing.
Very distinct difference from an inkling and notice.
Well, here's the thing. He started off with, I got notice, and then he corrected himself because he said it, and then he goes, oh, well, that's in his head. He's probably going, that's not actually how that went down.
And I'm not going to cover for him. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's what Beamer's saying.
Because he's not going to be here. We'll be here, though, for the second hour. Hour number 2 coming up next. Taylor will get to you on the phone lines, and we'll also get to what a few players in the Super Bowl got polled in terms of upcoming draft prospects and what do they think. We'll discuss that next.
Forecast for today, we're looking for breezy and mild conditions at 64 for the high. Might see some afternoon or evening showers coming in. Tomorrow, some potentially heavy, 65. And then as far as your forecast goes for Friday, again, could see a little bit of rain that day as well. Just that one accident in Lexington, Maine between Swartz and Krepp Streets.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. And, man, before we get to our pal Taylor on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, some of y'all are delivering. And I won't say your name. I will not dox you here. But we do have a texter on the Firehouse Subs text line. Says, former high school teacher and football/wrestling coach. Told former coach I'm going to have to miss a couple of spring workout days to handle some personal business, in quotations, while I was interviewing for a DC job at another school, a rival school at that.
What are you supposed to do, man? I don't know what to do.
That's maybe one of those situations where maybe being a little too honest probably isn't going to behoove you.
Yeah, because what I'm going to do, hey, I'm leaving your program for another program.
And the one that you hate the most, yeah. You know those guys we talk about that we hate all the time? Like, well, they are offering me a job.
Can't do nothing, man.
I kind of want it.
But obviously you can't say anything. You want to be super honest and say, you know what,
yes.
But until you know for sure you have it, obviously you're not going to let that cat out of the bag.
Because you might not have nothing when you get back.
Correct.
Yeah. Because if you share that information, you don't get the job. And like, hey, I'm ready for next year. And you're like, are you?
Are you a team player? I don't think so.
You're ready for next year where? Exactly. Because it's not going to be here.
As I've heard coaches say, like, in situations like that, there have been situations where it's like, yeah, you can go interview, but you better get the job.
Well.
Like, you can go. You better get it, though.
You're taking a shot here, but just know that it's at the buzzer.
Yeah.
You better get this job.
There is no rebounding opportunity at the end of this shot. 803-404-6100. It's the same number for the Firehouse Subs text line and the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. But we'll go to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, and our pal Taylor is on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Taylor. Welcome back to the early game, my friend.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, I was hearing you guys talk about Jamarcus Peak, and I feel like there's a lot of concern there, like Preston said. But to me, as a Gamecocks fan, I am not as concerned, and I'm going to tell you why. I think Josiah Thompson is going to be the guy at left tackle. I think he's going to take care of business and guard the blind side of the North Sellers. And I think a new coach is going to change that man, and he's going to be your guy. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. Appreciate the call, Taylor. And here's the thing, like to Taylor's point, Josiah not only, I think he's got the capability, because clearly the size has always been there. I know what I saw the last 6 weeks of 2024 when there was visible growth on the football field. You could see him get a little bit better. Like, you don't become a freshman All-American because you just look good in pads, right? You do it because there is something about your game that other people notice. And I think part of him getting better is one of the reasons why you had such a successful final 6 weeks of 2024. What happened in last offseason going into this year that led to the season that he had, which clearly was a step back? I don't know. Can it be coaching? It very well could be. If he's getting taught the wrong stuff in terms of technique, or if he's been allowed to develop bad habits, that's another thing too. Nothing hurts player development more than the development of certain bad habits. But maybe with coaching, if those are rectified, like, I could see what his ceiling is. But if Jacarius is missing a lot of time, or if you just want to put Jacarius at right tackle and you believe in him enough to be left tackle, then there is no option for Josiah. It is you have to make the leap, not because we think you can, because we know you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so he's going to have to step up, which is a great reason why getting him out of the portal, even though he was ours, he went into the portal, came back out.
It counts as a portal acquisition. It technically counts.
Great portal acquisition, and that's why depth is important, because whether the injury happens now, whether it happens during spring practice, or it happens during the summer workouts, which unfortunately we've experienced all of that. Offensive line, unfortunately, you need to have guys that can play those positions. And so, to quote Coach Stanley, man, we got to move on. I don't know. There's no real way to say it. No kind way to say it.
We treat the injured like the dead. We don't talk about them.
Let the dead bury the dead, man. We're moving forward.
You seen that meme where it's like a cartoon and this woman's like laying on the ground and like 6 feet below it is like, the family cat or something. She's like, we still talk about you. You can't be that meme. We can't. We can't. We still can't be talking about them until they get back on the field and are able to help you. At least that's the mentality that if it works for Dawn and that bunch, I think it could work for this football team. Fun thing that happened. This is an article that came out on ESPN.com here in the last couple days. And the interviews in it took place during Super Bowl week because there's a lot to kind of sift through and put together in a piece from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who is about as well connected as anybody is over at ESPN in terms of what NFL teams, GMs are thinking, and really connected with players too. He asked a lot of players that were participating in the Super Bowl, so they were available at Super Bowl Media Days, he'd ask them, which NFL draft prospect really intrigues you, right? And sometimes I think there's a lot of value to asking, like the anonymous GMs and evaluators. Yes, a lot of value there because that's their entire job is to do the evaluation, right? Like whether or not they are going to still be employed by that team the following year is resting on their evaluation on these players. But I find it interesting to get it from a player's perspective too, because they're watching, they look for a lot of different things. They have trained eyes in this too, exactly who they're looking at. And one of the players polled in this was Nick Emenwari. But this is cool for a couple things. Not just because I do think Nick does really respect this player's game, but also I think this is good for Nick Emenwari being a billboard for your program. Because Nick Emenwari was asked, and he said, quote, I like Brandon Cisse. And then, of course, he goes, Antonio Williams, Clemson wide receiver. He goes, I played against Williams in high school, played him in college. He's from Irmo, South Carolina, which is where I'm from. Hometown rival, great college career. Those are the dudes I'm keeping up with coming out of college.
Nick's a company man. I like it. I like it.
Team player.
Represents Irmo, represents his home school. Good job, Nick. I like what you're doing there.
Team player. Love the kid.
Company man, Nick Emenwari. I like it.
But that's, like, if you're just a casual football fan and you're reading this, you have no connection to the University of South Carolina, and you are reading this and you see immediately he jumps out to the guy that pretty much was brought in, maybe not to replace him like for like, because what Brandon Cisse is asked to do is different than what Nick Emenwari is asked to do, and it's going to be that way at the NFL level too. Brandon's not going to be asked to do what Nick does, and there are going to be some GMs that get fired for trying to identify the same prototype as Nick Emenwari when they are a dime a dozen in terms of that versatility. But I do think that if I was a casual football fan reading this, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, South Carolina's got another defensive back coming out. Maybe they are building something over there when it comes to developing players in that secondary. My idea of Clayton White as a defensive coordinator does get elevated a little bit because now you're starting to make this an annual thing of getting guys to the next level. And Brandon Cisse is not just some dude that's going to get taken in the third or fourth round. As good as Jalen Kilgore is, I think he's probably in that third, fourth round area. There are a lot of mocks that have Brandon in the first round, right? And if that's the case, I think that is just as good of a billboard for your program as you could possibly have.
We'll come to combine stuff a little bit later, but for right now, what is going to be the thing that separates Brandon from being mocked first round versus fourth round? Is it going to have to be some combine things that he needs to make sure that he takes care of? His film is what it is. So is it going to be, does he have to run a time or something along those lines?
That's an interesting question.
Because I don't know.
Because I think they do tests for just so much stuff, and I think it may be interviews too.
Interviews, okay.
I think, to me, honestly, the most value of the NFL scouting combine is interviews. I have a hard time buying into the fact that somebody may be running, a tenth of a second lower on their 40 time than what was anticipated could be the make or break decision for an NFL franchise when the tape shows something we know more than ever the difference between speed when you're running in your underwear in a dome compared to the functional speeds you have on a football field. I think we now take, miles per hour on a football field into more account than we do what your 40 time would be. Like, that part of the evaluation is changing a lot in the National Football League. I think really the value of the combine is getting these guys in interview situations, right? I think that's the reason Shedeur Sanders fell like he did in the draft, where he was maybe, late first to he's a day 3 guy, because the reports were that they did not like him in the interview setting, right? These are decisions that are made where they have to be able to trust you for, on defense, very complex assignments, depending on which coach gets you. Like, let's use Mike Macdonald for an example. You have to have a pretty complex understanding of what the offense is doing and what Mike Macdonald's going to ask of you, because it's not just a raw assignment football. You're going to be asked to do a lot of different things, because what does he do really well? He disguises what they're going to do. He has a lot of very exotic blitz packages, and there's a lot of communication needed in that secondary. I've seen several breakdowns, people that are really good at doing the film stuff talk about exactly how much communication is required in the back end of that secondary for them to be able to disguise things as well as they do after the snap. So there is a cerebral aspect where you're going to have to really know what the players got in between the ears to be able to know if they can grasp what they're going to be asked to do.
Yeah, it's such a weird situation. Again, we'll come back because the combine is coming. We'll obviously be talking about in depth. But while we're here, I know several people have gone through the process, and one of the things they always say is it's very hard to tell the difference between are these guys pressing me to see if I'm will fold, or is this or is this interview just not going well?
Right.
And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't know the difference, because I've known guys who have gone through the interview process and they know specific teams were like, I definitely know it's not happening with that team because that interview was terrible. But also, same thing, they'd be like, I don't know what was happening. They were very aggressive in the room with me. And then they end up getting drafted by that team.
And they get the call, and they're like, hey, we're really excited to have you. And you're like, really? Because I thought you wanted to kill me in the interview.
Yeah, so it can go all different kinds of ways. But for Cisse, all things indicate that he will do well in that process. And it probably will be a plus for him, whereas some guys, it is a minus for him. So all things looking up. But for Nick to say that, and as you said, as a casual fan, I'm just seeing Nick. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Oh, he endorses him and him too? Let's go. That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, Nick Evan Warwick.
Company man.
I
like it.
At the best. Now, another thing from this story that I found really interesting, kind of goes back to a conversation we had on leadership during football season, because I think it was after the Big Ten championship game when Fernando Mendoza had the really goofy interview after the game where he's all hyped up. And I can't look at him and not think goofy, right? But it's authentic. Yeah. Woohoo!
He doesn't necessarily look like that when he throws, but yeah, his post game you kind of get that feel.
Yeah, the wahoo vibes are more post game interview than it is John Mateer, where that looks like that's what he's yelling as he throws the football. Right, two different Mario sounds in different contexts. But I remember, we talked about, this guy is so goofy, but players do seem to really buy into him. There's an authenticity factor that you can really buy into. And out of all the players interviewed about this, the guys they're most intrigued with, Leonard Williams, interior defensive lineman, who's been in the league now for over a decade, said Fernando Mendoza. And here's what he said. Quote, he just looks like a great, humble kid. He just looks like he's happy to be there wherever he's at. I think that type of attitude, combined with his athleticism, playmaking ability, he's going to change a locker room wherever he goes. And then he goes on to say, being in the league for 11 years, it's not always about your ability to play. It's about your ability, especially at quarterback, to influence a team. His demeanor and his nature, the way he is to the core, you can see it.
You hit on the word, is authenticity. You can be anybody in anywhere, especially in the locker room. You can be anybody, but you just have to be yourself. And that's how leadership works in those situations. Because if you're trying to be something else that you're not, or you're trying to put on airs that you're a rah-rah guy, or you're a tough guy, or maybe you're the cerebral guy and you're not, whatever you're not, they can smell it. And it's the same thing with coaches. You can be anything. I've seen all of it work, but you just have to be the person you are. And I think we've pretty much confirmed that Fernando is who he is all the time. Even if it's a little weird, strange, or whatever, people gravitate towards it.
And I think his parents, it must be, family is encouraging that, because I don't know if you've watched his brother, Max.
Okay.
You got to look him up because he was doing a little bit of stuff. Like I think they let him do something on the Today Show and kind of an intro or whatever. But he's in his own little radio TV program in his high school or whatever, however old he is.
Cool.
He's hysterical. But again, he is his true, authentic self. And yeah, look him up. He's a fun one that's gonna be fun to watch.
It's a good life lesson too. Just authenticity.
Yes.
Be who you are.
Exactly.
It works.
Be who you are. Be comfortable who you are. Nobody wants a Russell Wilson.
No.
ChatGPT told me I should do this if I am the starting quarterback. I should have an office. I should tell my teammates that my office door is always open. I am a leader. Do as I say and as I do.
What does it say in the leader manual right here? Okay.
On page 47 of the leader manual, it says, I should take my offensive lineman out to a fine dining establishment. Nobody likes that.
Can't be that guy.
And if your quarterback wants you to play Settlers of Catan with him, then maybe he is his authentic self. Coming up next, though, Paul Maneri joined our airwaves in the post-game show, and we got a big series this weekend. Well, we just got on talking about how important authentic leadership is. And if you are in a position where you do need some authentic leadership to get you out of your tax issues, you're stuck in that IRS maze and you're looking for a way out, well, I can't think of a better leader than my pal John Ecton and his team at the Ecton Law Firm, because if you give them a call at 803-771-9800, you'll experience that leadership firsthand by talking with John and his team and finding a way out of whatever tax issue it is, whether it's personal income tax issues or business tax issues. John can help you out of that situation because his team at the Ecton Law Firm have proven local solutions here in the state of South Carolina that have helped thousands of families and businesses just like yours escape that IRS maze. So don't wait today. Go ahead and give them a call. Set up that consultation at 803-771-9800. And you can always hit them up online too at ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTONlawfirm.com.
Heavy traffic on Sunset Boulevard between North Lake Drive and I-20. Also, Main Street between Swartz and Krepp Streets in Lexington. Still getting things cleaned up there. And I-77 northbound at East Peach Road. That's more in the Chester area. An accident might be in progress at this time. And as far as your forecast goes, man, we're already seeing a warming trend just by the temperatures this morning. It's going to be breezy and mild, 64 for the high, 65 tomorrow. Some potentially heavy showers tomorrow afternoon and evening. Showers roll into Friday. Tomorrow's high, 65, 62 for Friday. Right now, 41.
It's the early game morning meeting, and head baseball coach Paul Maneri was on our very airwaves earlier this week because the Clemson series is coming up. It is a very big-time series, and of course, we have a game tonight, though, against Queens. And of course, Tyler Head and I will be at Segra Park from 1 to 2:30 on Saturday, kind of like our own college baseball game day sort of thing. At least
Really
that's
cool.
how I'm going to advertise this.
I like it.
We can put the cart before the horse because we are not playing in the game. But the team has to worry about Queens tonight, 6:30. And we have 2 family 4-packs of tickets with parking.
With parking.
With
Wow.
parking. I don't know how many times we give out the parking part too, but 2 family 4-packs of tickets with parking for tonight's game. All you got to do is be callers 3 or 4 to 803-404-6100. And if you hear Jen Jensen, then good news for you. You get one of those 4-packs of tickets. So go ahead, call in right now. Get yourself ready. Get your last look at this team before the Clemson series. Now, before we get into any of what Paul had to say, because he had a couple of interesting things, and I'll let Jen give out these tickets to our lucky winners. I will say this, because we just haven't gotten to talk about like the rivalry. Not only to me is this like the measuring stick series, but this is also, to me, the most unique rivalries because of how they format it. It's not you're going one year you're playing at the other team's ballpark 3 straight nights. For this one, it is one team gets a home game, the other team gets a home game, and then you get a really cool neutral site game at a minor league park. And my favorite games of those series are the ones that are the neutral site games at minor league parks.
Can I be message board Preston here?
Ooh, MSP?
MSP?
MBP, yeah, Message Board Preston. Wow, my brain. Acronyms.
Well, what do you consider neutral?
Oh,
How neutral is it?
last year it was in Greenville, which you wouldn't consider so neutral.
This year?
It's in Segra. So you get the neutral site minor league ballpark.
All I'm saying. I just want to put that argument out there for anybody who needs something. In case you need an argument to make.
Look at you throwing chum into the waters. Would have worked perfectly last year with it being, in Greenville,
Exactly.
where you're like, oh, this isn't so neutral.
Neutral? Huh?
Yeah, neutral, buddy.
Exactly.
But for this year, though, you get it at Segra. And to me, it's one of the more fun things on the college baseball calendar. And for this year, it's even more vitally important because I think we're still trying to get a really good look as to what this team is against really good competition. Like Northern Kentucky, you expect to be able to win the series. That is expected, right? However, there's a good chance Northern Kentucky's playing in the NCAA tournament at the end of the year because I think they're a favorite in the Horizon League. That's a team that can win their league and end up playing postseason baseball. College baseball is a randomness sport. There are going to be games that you lose to teams you're not supposed to lose to. I think that's also just a baseball thing in general, too.
That's why you play so many games.
That's why you play so many games. It's a large sample size sport. However, there is a lot of credence to how well you play against teams that are really good. And when you get to SEC season, you're going to have to play, the Floridas, the LSUs, the Arkansas, the teams that are always really good. They're great programs that have maintained their consistency over the last decade or so. Clemson's a top 25 team, and they've handled business this is your first chance to me to look at what you look like and how you're able to compete, how you're able to pitch against great hitting, how you're able to hit against much better pitching. To me, this is the closest thing that we're going to get to a mirror, because even when you play like North Carolina in the midweek, it's a midweek game. You're using midweek starters. The pitching looks a little different. The strategy's a little different. How do you look in a series when you're playing your best pitchers, your best arms are going to be out there, against a team that is going to be a big part of the college baseball conversation all year long?
And not only the team, but the environment.
Yes.
Going into a hostile environment, and yes, I'm joking about the neutral part. And so, you know, if you move that out the way, but going to have to play in Clemson is something with that unique, I'll put that in air quotes, with that unique environment that they've created up there, especially with the bullpen and all of that. That is something that they haven't experienced yet, and some of those players have never experienced, ever.
Yeah.
And so that is going to see what that's going to be like for them.
And before we get to Paul Maneri, we can't do this whole segment without getting the morning meeting sound. Morning.
Repeat after me. Today will be an awesome day. Let's go. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day.
And it will, because Paul Maneri was on the airwaves this week. And a lot of it's talking about the series, but also talking about what the season's been like for him so far. This is going to be on yesterday's cut list, Jen. This is Paul, we cut 6, talking about comparing the feeling after the first 8 games this year as compared to where they were at this point of the season last year.
Well, you know, last year I think we were undefeated at this time, and this year we've lost 2 games, and yet I feel much better about this team than I did last year's team. You know, we had a couple of days where we didn't swing the bats well, and obviously the first game against Army, Riley struggled at the beginning, and we got into a hole. But I think this team's going to continue to get better and better. And the biggest reason for my optimism is I do think we have some pitching depth. Our bullpen has been terrific all year, and at least in these first 8 games, except for the one game against Army, you know, when Josh Gunther struggled coming out of the bullpen. But outside of that, our bullpen's been really great, and we're going to get Philpott, and we're going to get Horowitz back, which is only going to strengthen our staff. And if we can get this rotation figured out, I think we got a chance to be pretty competitive on the mound. And I know that we'll hit better as the season goes on. These kids have hit everywhere they've been, the ones that have transferred in. And I just think our hitting will become more consistent. You know, Talmadge LaCroix is playing like on a different planet right now. KJ Scobie's doing some great things. And then, you know, the emergence of Will Craddock, I think, is going to make a big difference as we keep going forward. So even though we've lost a couple that we probably should have won or could have won, I feel really good about our team as we go forward. But obviously this coming weekend, a lot's going to be made out of this big test that we'll have with the Clemson team. And, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think our kids are going to compete really hard.
What do you think whenever you hear his synopsis so far of the first 8 games of the season?
I'll give him that. It is difficult to hear somebody say, like, we lost 2 games, but I feel better about this team than last year. But that makes total sense to me, because the record is not necessarily indicative of what you see in the team and what he's seeing at practice. I get that. It's just going to be, hey, Clemson's coming. They're going to be here. You're going to have to show and prove to prove all of that stuff. I think you get the benefit of the doubt until you play this quote-unquote first real series of the year.
This weekend is prime for They Are Who We Thought They Were weekend. But we have Denny Green Awards to give out for things that have happened since last week, and we'll do that next here in the early game. Don't know if any of you are like me, but like time is moving really fast. Busy life, got a lot of stuff going on. And I'm one of those too that I will put off chores like cleaning for as long as I can until eventually the harsh reality is in front of me and I got to do something about it. And that's where, at least for me, my friends at Zero Res carpet and air duct cleaning come in handy, right? Because they can take care of the carpets and the air ducts for me, and that's just one less thing that I have to deal with. And I know that Zero Res is going to come into my home, and they're going to take care of business, and they're going to get things cleaner, and they're going to stay cleaner for longer. I don't have to call them every month, right? That's the best part, because the no soap lingering to attract dirt and the zero water technology keeps your home cleaner for longer without the use of incredibly harsh chemicals. So if you are like me and you've kind of let that slip between the cracks, go ahead and schedule online at ZeroResColumbia.com. And remember, Zero Res, spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Highway 601 near Van Boeklen Road. We have a report of an accident there. Also, Columbia Avenue, or Columbia Highway, that is, between Highway 391 and the Jake Knotts Bridge. So another accident in progress there. Warming trend upon us. We love that. Breezy, mild today. And we're looking for a high of 64. Afternoon or evening showers tomorrow, potentially heavy 65. 62 on Friday. Again, a chance for some showers. Warmer certainly than it was yesterday morning. It's pretty significantly. It's 41 right now on 107.5 The Game.
They're what we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in the preseason like it's bull? We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Bears are who we thought they were. And there are plenty of other teams and players in the world of sports who are exactly who we thought they were. And I want to put a whole sport on this list, too.
Ooh.
And I want to give credit where credit is due, because someone beat me to the punch on the Firehouse Subs text line. And I want to read the text off. Number 1, UCLA. Number 2, LSU. Number 5, Georgia Tech. And number 6, Arkansas all lost last night to mid-major programs. How do you guys view early season midweek losses by supposed top 10 teams? I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly who I had written down. Not just all of those teams, but the sport of college baseball. So here's what happened last night with some top 10 teams in the sport of college baseball. Unranked McNeese State beat number 2 LSU 7-6. Will Wade ain't walking through that door either. And they beat number 2 LSU 7-6. San Diego State beat number 1 UCLA 4-3. Georgia State beat number 5 Georgia Tech 9-4. Arkansas State beat number 6 Arkansas 12-4. Butch Jones wasn't walking through that door either. And number 10 Florida, they won, but they did give up 11 runs to Florida International University. The sport of college baseball is exactly what I think it is, and exactly what we all thought it was. Now, I understand the frustration of when, South Carolina does play Army, and it's a walk-a-thon, and you lose that game, and it's really frustrating. I get it. Or you held the 2 runs against Northern Kentucky at the very end of that series. Incredibly frustrating, and I get it. This is a sport of randomness at times. And sometimes even your best teams will lose to mid-major teams that just aren't up to par with who you are. And if you play 20 times, you can probably beat them 19, but there will be one time where you will get got. I will remind everybody of one of my favorite lines in music history. Lauryn Hill taught me that you might win some, but you just lost one. And in the sport of college baseball, that is exactly what we think it is.
Yeah, and it goes back to this idea of benefit of the doubt. If we were ranked higher, if we were ranked top 10 and we lost the Army, I could easily say, it's one bad performance. Like I imagine those fan bases are saying. But when you're not, and you have the doubts that we have coming into the season, all of a sudden the midweek loss that could happen becomes more of a red flag than it is for them. And so, yeah, it can happen throughout baseball. I thought y'all were going to snipe me, but you didn't. I got nervous. Thought you was going to snipe me, but you didn't, because they are who I thought they were. Hockey players.
Ooh, that's good.
They are absolutely bonkers.
They're nuts, dude. They're nuts.
Do I need these teeth? No, I don't need them. I'm going to play without them.
And you know what? They can get gold teeth at this point, to represent the medals. And I'm sure they'll be underwritten.
I'm going to smile through these bloody chipped teeth with this goals that I have. Hockey players, absolutely nuts. They are number 2. They are number 2 on my crazy athlete top 5. Number 1 being wrestlers.
Yeah.
Number 1 being wrestlers. Wrestlers
for sure.
Are the craziest, but hockey's very close.
Here's the thing. I am one of those people. I'm a very anxious human being at times. I get the dreams where I lose teeth all the time, and when I wake up in a cold, dark sweat.
Is a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
It's a recurring dream where I am losing teeth. And it's not just like I get hit in the face with a hockey stick. It's I'm just walking around and all of a sudden, it just falls out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh, my God, no.
Oh, man.
How can I let this happen?
Tough spot.
It happens a lot. And so I am very self-conscious about keeping the pearly whites inside where they belong. So when I watch Jack Hughes take a stick to the face, I'm like, what would I have done in that situation? I would have been in the locker looking in a mirror and be like, oh, God, this looks terrible. My man didn't care. He just went on to score the game-winning goal, the golden goal, to win a gold medal in the Olympics. And that brings me to that same game, though. They are who we thought they were. Connor McDavid is the greatest loser in the history of sports.
You got me.
in American sports, we can count just like on on one hand the amount of times that a losing team player was like the Super Bowl MVP. It's only happened once in the history of the Super Bowl. That was within one of the first 5 Super Bowls. A player on the losing team got the MVP. In the NBA, I think it's only happened once when Jerry West was the Finals MVP. I think that was like in '69 when they lost to the Celtics again. And that's why it was so notable, is like he was so good in that series that no one was going to blame him for losing it. He got Finals MVP for it. And just a couple of years ago, Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe, which is the trophy given out for the playoff MVP. And he got it on a team that lost the Stanley Cup final. He was also named the MVP of the Olympic tournament in a game in which they lost the final game. There is no greater loser in the history of sports now, because when you do that once, it's one thing. When you do it twice, it's becoming the thing. And for Connor McDavid, you are exactly who we thought you were. You may be the best player on planet Earth, but you're also the best loser on planet Earth.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I don't follow hockey, tight. I'm keeping it in my periphery. They have the ongoing bit on the Le Batard show about him being Connor McOverrated. Which is a ridiculous premise.
Yes.
But this guy just does not show up in the moment. He shows up in every other moment except the moment. And the same thing showed itself in the gold medal game. Breakaway, overtime. It's the best player in the universe, and he does not make the goal. And it's like, is this becoming something?
It's the wildest thing. It's the damnedest thing in sports right now, in terms of just like one guy not getting over the hump.
So like McChoke.
McChoke, yeah, McChokevid.
It's kind of that, except he's the reason why his teams even get to those points. So it's like, like, what do you do with those?
Yeah.
But I do like poking fun at them. So
of course, and since he doesn't play for us, it's cool.
Absolutely.
Any of us, Royal, whether it's your team or whatever the case is. So yeah, you sniped me on that one, because I definitely had him in following the trajectory of make overrated. With that being said, I did say yesterday I watched a little bit of NBA basketball. Victor Wembanyama, you are an alien.
Yes.
And it was so fun to watch him play basketball, in that, one, he plays hard, which is what we want out of our basketball players.
Out of our superstars.
Two, he cares, which is another thing, which is something that we want out of our basketball players. But just watching how he affects the game, where players just do not want to shoot anywhere around him because he's going to block their shot into the stands, is really fun to watch. So he is the alien that we were promised, and he is becoming him very slowly.
Like, it's really fun to see some of the highlights where he blocks somebody's three-point attempt, and that because his arms are so long, and then he ends up doing like a spin move, step back three-pointer on the very other end, and it's like, that's comical. Or watching him dunk when he barely has to jump, like in traffic, is also really comical. There's a lot of comical things about what he does with the ball in his hand, but maybe the funniest thing is whenever somebody is going to the basket, where 9 times out of 10, they are taking, 10 times out of 10, they're taking that layup. But they know that freak of nature and that 8-foot whatever wingspan is right behind them. And for what usually be a shot that you take every single time, you're too scared to do, because that man will put it through the backboard.
Yeah. And they just won't do it. They're like, oh, let me do something different. It's fascinating to watch.
Watching the shots teams don't take because of him is equally as funny as him blocking the shots that they do take. It is a whole lot of fun to get to watch. Well, those are our Denny Green Award winners. Now it's time for some folks to get in trouble, because there's one sorest of all losers that I'm excited to put on the line. I'll tell you who it is coming up next.
I'm just going to get on the line right now, man.
My patience is running thin. You're all running out of time. You was late to my practice, sir? Everybody on the line.
That's the worst, is when everybody's on the line. One person's late to practice, and everybody is going to get punished for it.
That's how it has to be sometimes. And with mine, I am putting everybody on the line. So if you would like me to go first, I can.
See, I have an individual, but I like the team effort of getting everybody involved on the line.
So this is not only going to be the players, but this is also going to be the staff. And staff first. Kirby Smart, come here.
Come here, Kirby.
And all the players. How many times do we have to have this conversation? I'm tired of talking about this. Every year, it's like clockwork. Reckless driving again? Why do we continue to have this conversation, man? It's, man, listen, I understand that 18 to 24-year-olds, 26-year-olds, however long you play college football now, they will do stupid things. And yes, I understand maybe you may have taken some unnecessary risks while you were driving. But Kirby, stop this within your program, man. It is a thing. We talk about when does a thing become a thing. It is a thing now.
It's been a thing. Yeah, that's the crazy thing, dude.
And
years.
Listen, we're joking mostly, but you all had the worst possible consequences of this. Suffered in your program not long ago, recently. And yet we still have this issue within your program. Kirby, you got to stop this. And for that, get on the line. Tired of having this conversation, man.
This one's so bad to the point where everybody needs to get on the line except for the offenders. You're going to watch.
One of these things,
you're going to watch, and you are going to watch them run until somebody there is going to hold you accountable too.
Somebody has to, because they can. Kirby preaches discipline and holding players accountable, except in this one thing.
Yeah. Come
on, man. And the part is that it's not just you. You're obviously putting other people's lives in danger when you're doing these things. Mm-hmm. As they don't have to have an abstract idea. This happened, unfortunately, within their program.
Yeah.
People lost their lives because of this silliness. So, yeah, get on the line.
In the most emphatic way possible. For me, being a sore loser is never a good look.
Not a good look.
Nathan McKinnon is maybe the sorest of losers on the planet. We talk about Connor McDavid being the best loser. We talked about this on Monday. But, buddy, sometimes it's cool to just take the L. Sometimes it's cool in the locker room to say, we didn't make enough plays. We made a lot of plays in this game. We didn't make enough to win it. And it really sucks to watch our biggest rival in this realm be on top of the medal stand. But instead, he hit us with I'll let you judge who the better team was today. Buddy, I've got one judge of who is awarded champion in this, and that is goals for and goals against. Those are the two things they have on the scoreboard. The scoreboard will tell you how much time's left, how many timeouts you got, and also it'll be judged on who puts more pucks in the back of the net. That's who wins the game. That is how we determine who the better team is. Did you outshoot them? Yeah, great. You want to hang a banner over it? This ain't college football, buddy. We're not going to just have a selection committee tell you who the champion is. The selection committee is the players that are on the ice. And guess what? Out of all the people to complain about, I'll let you judge who the better team was, I'll say the team that didn't miss a wide open net late in the game when you could have buried it. You could have put that game away and won it. Because there was one time in that game, Connor Hellebuck, the goalie for Team USA, was out of position. And Nathan McKinnon had a wide open net. And he shanked it. Just completely shanked it. Like, buddy, you're the reason that we're having this conversation. So maybe a little bit of accountability there would be nice instead of sitting here pouting, I'll let you judge who the better team was today. I'll let you be the judge. We got more shots on goal than they did. By a lot. I'll let you judge who the better team was. Nathan McKinnon, grow up. You're one of the best players in the world, too. If anybody should take accountability for Canada blowing it, it's you, partner. So Nathan McKinnon, get on the line. Pitiful stuff.
The blue line.
The blue line, yes.
Get on the blue line. We're going blue line to blue line. How are we going to do this for hockey?
Oh, yeah. You know what? Because you lost to Team USA and because you want to act like a baby about it.
You got to touch the red and the blue lines.
Yes, the red and the blue. So we're going to do the whole scene in Miracle, the movie Miracle, where they lose a game, I believe it was like to Norway, or they in one of the lead-up games to the Olympics. And they weren't playing very hard. It was in the middle of like a long stretch of games where they're playing to try to get acclimated. Herb Brooks didn't like the effort. So he has them skate basically the hockey version of suicides, right? Mm-hmm. You skate all the way down to the end of the ice. You go back.
I figured there's
opposite
a version
blue
of that.
line, back, red line, back, blue line, back. And he just kept going again. And to the point where the person who owned, like the entity that owned the rink, closed the place down, turned the lights off. And even with the lights off in there, they're still skating. And he's going again. And those players started to hate Herb Brooks. That is Nathan McKinnon's punishment.
That is why this works so well, because in whatever sport you're playing, there's a line.
There's a line. Yeah. It don't matter what it is. Soccer, line. Hockey, line. You got to skate it. You're not running it. Football, many lines. Basketball,
and
many lines.
The coaches will find a way to make you get on the line, whatever sport. That being said, really quickly, because you didn't give notice, because you gave Shane an inkling, Joe DeCamillis, get on the line.
I'm not going to be here.
We don't like that. It's not that you left. It's how you left. We suspect. Also, that's 2 in a row because Sterling Lucas, get on the line. I think you did the same thing. So I don't like how this is going down.
Joe D, why is your LinkedIn page look a little different? That's a newer picture of you. You're clean shaven. Is that a tie?
Where you going today, man?
Oh, you're picking up. You're leaving. We're here for another couple hours.
Wait, I think I saw Jody Camillus at Hall's Chop House. What? Who was he with?
That surely means he's going to land the job.
Exactly. Right. The place.
That surely means that the deal is done. I don't think there's any other precedent that tells us otherwise.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh man, he did get hit. So, like, indirectly hit him with the I'm not gonna be here. Oh man, that is funny. 2 hours down, 1 hour to go. Coming up next, we'll react to what happened at CLA last night. Basketball team losing another game, this time to Kentucky. What are our thoughts on it? Did we learn anything from that game? We'll discuss, and we'll hear from more from Shane Beamer and Matthew Smiley coming up next.
Hey, it's Jen for CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. When we redid our kitchen, it was not a planned thing. It was due to a flood in the kitchen, and that made it a little more stressful. But the folks at CHW Cabinetry, they sure made it a whole bunch better for us. They gave us that photorealistic rendering of the finished kitchen before it was even finished, and that was like a light at the end of the tunnel. We could see what it was going to look like when it was done. We could actually take those pictures to figure out everything else that needed to go into the kitchen, flooring and backsplash, countertops, all of those things. But kitchens, that's not where their expertise stops. They can help you if you're going to update maybe a bathroom, maybe a home office workspace. You want to make some closets a little more functional, they can help you with that as well. Just any updates you're looking to make in your home, visit chwcabinetry.com for more information or call them at 803-520-6837. Tell them Jen sent you. CHW Cabinetry in Lexington, locally owned and passion from inspiration to installation. Highway 601 near Van Boeklen Road. We do have a report of an accident there. Also, some stop-and-go traffic, I-26 eastbound between the Ballantyne exit, so around exit 101, and Piney Grove Road. So a couple miles there where it's just kind of that standard stop and go. 64, breezy and mild today. 65 with some afternoon or evening showers tomorrow. Some potentially heavy. That will continue into Friday. Clearing up, though, on Saturday. So the weekend looks pretty good. But 65 tomorrow, 62 on Friday. Upper 60s for Saturday. And, hey, by Sunday, could be 75. Right now, 42.
The early game, third and long hour starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. And our man Thomas is in the production room here at Studio 803, where we do the last hour of every single show. And you can see what this nice studio looks like best by watching us on YouTube at The Game TV Radio. Or if you just go on YouTube and you go to the search bar and you search 107.5 The Game, you will find it pretty easily. We work pretty well with the whole search engine optimization thing, so you'll find us pretty easily. Don't forget to hit subscribe too, so you'll know whenever we are going live. And I do know, nice little station plug here, Joey Logano was here in Studio 803 yesterday. They recorded an interview with him. That's going to be coming up on the YouTube page very soon, so keep a lookout for that. Some really exciting stuff with a lot of the cool things that we get to do in this studio. But Preston Thorne, one thing that was not so cool was that the men's basketball team had a chance to beat Kentucky last night. It was a one-possession game for a lot of the second half. And at one point, you tied it relatively late in the game. Ultimately, though, some of the limitations with your roster kept you from being able to win the game. When I say limitations with the roster, missing open three-point looks because you haven't been a good three-point shooting team. If we want to give out Denny Green awards for they are who we thought they were, going 27% from three-point line last night and it costing you a game, I think is the perfect indicator of they are who we thought they were. For someone like South Carolina who's making a smidge under 31% of their threes on the season, you got out-rebounded again. And when it came to offensive rebounds, Kentucky grabbed almost 44% of their missed shots last night. You're a team that is 320th in offensive rebound percentage and 292nd in defensive rebounding percentage. The things that have plagued the construction of your roster this year ultimately kept you from being able to pull out a win against Kentucky last night, regardless of how well you played defensively.
Yeah, and like I said during the 6 o'clock, last night's game was the first time where I could listen to somebody make the argument saying that the rosters, we just don't have enough to be able to make the plays, because there was several stretches when the game was 2 points tied. We had several opportunities to either tie the game, take the lead, and we just could not get over the hump. Open shots, untimely turnovers, giving up certain plays. You know, it was Michi, it was Eli, it was Elijah. It was a team effort to not make the shots that they had. And that was the first time where I said, oh, we just don't have the guy that can to get a bucket, as we said.
Yeah.
We've always said, we need somebody in this moment to get a bucket. And they got open shots, and it just didn't fall for them. And so you sort of left with a team that played hard, played about as well as you can expect them to play all year, and they still weren't able to get it done. And I don't know whether that's encouraging or discouraging, but that's my diagnosis from last night.
Because if you look at it from a Kentucky fan standpoint, or somebody who has, let's just say you covered Kentucky, like Kyle Tucker, who is one of, to me, the best basketball writers that exist right now. He covered Kentucky for the longest time with The Athletic. He's still covering the sport. And no, not that Kyle Tucker, the former Cubs outfielder who joined the Evil Empire over the offseason. That's a different Kyle Tucker. We like this Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker was talking about last night, like the entire game was like, this team is getting outplayed by a South Carolina team that is at the bottom of the SEC. Because he still obviously is very in tune with the Kentucky program. And a lot of Kentucky fans were starting to get really discouraged last night whenever it was a close, competitive game in the final 10 minutes and what you would traditionally call the fourth quarter of a game. They started to get a little bit of lemon booty as a collective fan base. And this is a team that has spent $22.5 million on that roster. And they've spent a lot of money and overpaid for guys who were six men. Like Denzel Aberdeen was a six-man last year at Florida. Muhammad Diabate was a six-man last year at Alabama. They invested a lot of money in players that probably are not worth that type of money, and they were starting to get a little antsy last night. But ultimately, the gap in terms of what you paid for does eventually show through at a certain point in the game. And I think when you just look at this team's roster limitations, obviously the size keeps you from being able to rebound effectively. Even when you had your two bigs in the game, we saw a lineup last night that featured Kreese DeSandico and Jordan Butler on the floor at the same time, and they were still not rebounding the basketball when the shot went up.
Do we have those rebounding numbers?
The rebounding numbers for the game, Kentucky grabbed 18 offensive rebounds. South Carolina grabbed 5 offensive rebounds. If we just want to look at total rebounds in the game, Kentucky out-rebounded South Carolina 48-28.
We talked about it earlier, whether it was a skill versus a will issue. And maybe earlier in the season you could have said that it was a will issue where, you know, the effort may not have been there and they may not have been fighting as hard as they need to. That's one thing. And now I think I'm landing on it's a little bit more discouraging when you get the effort and you still are getting dominated in those spots because you don't have the skill, the size, the athletic ability to be able to do that.
That's what made last night, I would say, maybe one of the more deflating losses of the season.
That's the word I've been looking for.
It's a season full of deflating losses. But because think about it this way. Going into the game, and I sitting in these same chairs yesterday, I said one thing you're going to have to do defensively is, yes, Kentucky is not playing to the standard on offense that Mark Pope teams have played with, because almost every Mark Pope coach team is a really good offense that plays above expectation. And they do that because Mark Pope is a really good architect of an offense. His teams move really well without the ball. It's a lot of zoom action, which requires a lot.
Floppy action!
There was some floppy action last night from Kentucky, which, again, guarding floppy action requires some forms of communication. You got to be on the same page defensively as to whether or not you're switching that action and having the guy who is initially having the assignment of getting the guy running off the screen in the floppy action. For those who don't know, a floppy action is just when a big sets a screen. Traditionally, it's near the block for an off-ball mover, a down screen as they would call it, and you're catching the ball usually 15 or 16 feet from the basket. Some teams will push that out a little bit to where the person's catching it over at the top of the key. That's more of maybe the modernized version of floppy action. And sometimes it's two different screens happening at once on each side of the floor. But they did a little floppy action. There's a lot of zoom action. Those type of actions are very off-ball centered to where it puts a lot of stress on help side defenders, stress on the guys guarding the cutter. You have to communicate to whether either you're switching, or if you're not switching, you got to fight over those screens. You got to fight over those dribble handoffs. And it's a lot of actions that put defenses in bad positions to be able to guard the next pass or to be able to guard the drive. And I thought South Carolina actually performed that part of the game plan really well. I thought they communicated really well. They committed to switching a lot of those off-ball actions, which made it to where the advantage Kentucky got might not have been there, but they might have gotten a size mismatch. And when they got the size mismatches, which is the one down part about switching things, is that sometimes you can get caught in a size mismatch. I don't think Kentucky did a great job of handling those size mismatches, and you played them well enough defensively to win the game. However, as Lamont Paris has said a few times this year, the possession doesn't end when the shot goes up. The possession ends when somebody gets a rebound or when you defensively get the rebound to start your offensive possession. And last night, with Kentucky getting 14 second chance points, if we just played the game, if there was just a rule that, you know, the possession ends on one shot, everybody gets one shot per possession, then you probably win that game last night. But guess what? We're not doing that. That's not how basketball is played. So you ultimately did end up giving up 72 points. A lot of that came kind of in, I don't want to say garbage time, but South Carolina had to press, and they hit home run passes down the floor. In terms of the half-court game, you held them to about 65 or 66 points in the half, like the raw half-court. You played well enough defensively to be able to win that game. But you didn't get enough stops because you weren't able to end the possessions. And when you got open three-point looks late in the game, because I don't think any of those three-point looks that we saw last night were shots we would constitute as bad shots.
No, they weren't.
You just didn't make them. And if it's one game, that would be frustrating. But we've seen that part with this basketball team all season long.
Yeah, and as you said, I think that's been my basketball revelation for the year. And I think Lamont did a great job of explaining that concept. It seems simple, and it makes total sense, duh. But, yeah, you don't get to end the possession just because you made them shoot the ball.
Right.
You have to get the ball back.
Yeah. The ball's live when it goes up.
It's still live. Yeah, it's not like it's not – that's not the goal. And that sounds so simple, but sometimes the biggest revelations are very simplified in the way you put it, and they weren't able to accomplish that last night.
No. Oh, no. Enough to where I'm choking thinking about it. Oh, my God.
Don't choke up about it.
Yeah, I really choked up about that loss last night. But, like, that's the thing, too, is the most discouraging loss to me. It's one thing to just get your doors blown off in a game like that, or in a game like Arkansas or Florida, where, look, you watched them in warm-ups, and you could tell one team is going to win this game by 30 points. Like, that's deflating in its own. But when you're in the locker room before the game, you go through the game plan, and you go out and you execute so much of that game plan, offensive and defensively, because, again, the shots they got I thought were fine. It's late February, though, man. You got to be able to knock those down. And, of course, they haven't been hitting them to the degree that you need to be, and that's why you are one of the, I guess, worst three-point shooting teams in the country, is because this isn't something that's only happened for a week or two. It's happened all season long. You can draw up the best plays to get open shots. You can scheme up the best defense to take away cutters and to blow up zoom actions or blitz ball screens and make Kentucky have to go to options C and D on offense. Shoot, Otega Owe is one of the best players in the SEC in terms of just putting the ball in the basket. He was 3 of 13 from the field last night. You did a lot of the things that you set out to do in this game. But because there is a deficit in terms of execution from one team to the next, that Kentucky was able to play their D game or their C game and be able to win because they just executed more when it came to some of the more fundamental aspects of the game, like rebounding.
Yeah. Like I said, that floppy action that I heard the announcer yell out, I was like, oh, I know what that means. And on that play, they ran the screen. There was a miscommunication, threw a lob, dunk, 2 points, and it just felt like, that was our chance to get a stop, and we didn't get it.
That is the thing with Kentucky, as disappointing as they've been. I mean, if you were ranking the biggest college basketball disappointments, Kentucky's on that list based off the sole fact that they spent that much money on the roster, and they are an above-average SEC basketball team with a very low ceiling. That it's really disappointing, but Mark Pope draws it up, man.
Yeah.
I think they scored on every single ATO or after timeout play where, you're in a timeout, you get to draw it up, you inbound it, and it's pretty organized. I think every ATO that Kentucky had on offense, I think they scored on last night.
Well, to that point that you made, after about like the last 2 weeks, I've been pretty heavy watching college basketball, watching the teams that are going to be playing late into the tournament. Arizona, Houston, Duke, Michigan. I watched a little bit of Michigan, so I watched all of those really good teams. And when I watched them versus what I watched on Kentucky, it was not the same.
No, they're in totally different classes, right? And that's the thing, like with Kentucky, is that when it comes to projecting them, they need to hit a ton of threes because defensively they're not very good either. Like they're kind of just above average in both offense and defense. And last year they were really good offensively, but further behind on the defensive side of the ball. But the offense was so good that they had a ceiling that could win them a few games in the tournament. And they did win a few games in the tournament. They got to the Sweet 16 and got beat by Tennessee, a team that they beat twice during the regular season. But couldn't get it done there. This team does not have that. I think this is maybe one of the lowest ceiling Kentucky teams in a while. And the floors, I feel, is kind of the same because even with John Calipari, they had a floor of losing to St. Peter's or Oakland in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I think this team has a similar floor, but I just can't see that team being a team that ends up winning a national championship or even making a run to the Final Four once we play this thing in Indianapolis. But coming up next, Matthew Smiley officially introduced as the special teams coordinator. What did he have to say about taking this opportunity? What makes him prepared to be able to take this job? We'll hear from Matthew Smiley coming up next.
All right, guys, it's almost March. You've been doing all your workouts. You've been trying to keep your resolutions for the new year, and something's just not clicking. It might be brain fog. It may be that you're working out and not getting the results that you're used to. Well, there's a reason, and you don't just have to live with it because it might be low testosterone. You can call Dr. Dan Boltnight, who's a respected local physician, and he'll get to the bottom of it. This isn't some nameless, faceless online data bank where you send all your information and who knows where it goes or what they use it for. Dr. Dan Boltnight personally tailors your treatment based on your labs and symptoms. And those labs and symptoms, those labs are absolutely free. Come in, get a free consultation and get your T-level checked. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So don't wait. Call them at 803-875-MENS. That's 803-875-MENS. Or you can find them online at mensclinicsc.com.
The cranberries weren't wrong. I will say I was a little bit of a our Mark Pope hit us with the, yeah, we know rebounding is a big emphasis in this game because we know that's something South Carolina does really well, and I was like, did you forget who
No, they don't.
you were playing? No,
No, they don't.
Dog, no.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Who did y'all scout?
Scouted the wrong team.
Yeah. I was like genuinely, my ears perk up. I'm like, what? Are you sure about that? I look around. Everybody else hear that too? I pulled up the Ken Pom page. Like, yeah, they're 15th in offensive rebounding, 16th in defensive.
Yeah, it's like, no, not true.
Like, don't accuse them of that.
Still working that earlier slowdown, Highway 601 near Van Boekelen Road. And the forecast, yep, it is looking pretty nice. 64, breezy, mild today, 65 tomorrow. Could have some afternoon or evening showers, some potentially heavy. And then high of 65 tomorrow, 62 for your Friday with some showers possible. But then the weekend looks clear and really nice. 67 on Saturday, potentially 75 with sunshine on Friday. And it's warming up this morning up to 45 right now on 107.5 The Game.
Joe DeCamillis might have said, I'm not going to be here. Hit him with that Magic Johnson, but Matthew Smiley is indeed going to be here.
That's right.
I would even say he's here right now because he was at the football facility yesterday in his introductory press conference. Now, Matthew Smiley's resume is really interesting, and there's a couple things that I really like. You might look at it, and you might not be incredibly overwhelmed with like a large track record of experience at the high levels of college football because there's, some Charleston Southerns and there's a Dartmouth where his grad assistant year was from. I really do appreciate, though, anybody that coaches at the D3 level and had to coach offensive coordinator,
absolutely,
defensive coordinator, do a little bit of everything. I genuinely appreciate that about his coaching track record.
Here's where I stand. I don't take much credence in you being an NFL coach. That doesn't mean more to me. But also, if you've been coaching in D2 and D3, that doesn't mean less to me. Because I know there are dudes that are dialing it up, coaching their behinds off in D2 and D3. And so that's awesome that you're in the NFL, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're great. But I don't disparage anybody who has been coaching at lower levels because oftentimes that means you have to be more creative. You have to get more out of your players. You have to do more fundamentally sound because you're working with less resources.
Yeah, you have to innovate. You have to be a little bit of an innovator. Like in the NFL, there's a reason they call it a copycat league because somebody does something really successful and then other coaches either replicate it and find success or they try to replicate it, don't do it, and get fired. How many people are going to try to do exactly the same type of stuff Mike McDonald did for the Seahawks this year and find themselves getting fired because they don't have the horses to pull that off?
It's on the way.
That is incoming, right? But at the D2, D3 levels, you got what you got, and you got what your resources are. You're limited to what you can, who you can really bring in. So innovation oftentimes starts at those levels, and then sometimes they do make their ways up to higher levels of the sport. But do you think Matthew Smiley missed coaching in college?
There's a possibility.
He was definitely asked. This will be cut to Jen. This was him asked about going back to college after his stint in the NFL.
Now that the dynamic kickoff exists in the NFL, it's completely different. I only did the inaugural year of that in the NFL, so getting back to Penn State was really getting back to what I was used to with kickoff and kickoff return for sure. Punt return, that was an education that was helpful to be around that.
A lot of differences in the college and pro game. And I think what helps, too, is he's not fresh off of that transition. He did spend some time at Penn State last year. And I do find that to be a little valuable to help him get back into readjustment to the college game. But maybe there's something from the pros that he can bring back in terms of just because you heard him say it was an education. And maybe that education helps prepare him for a spot like this.
Yeah, because the college special teams game is more dynamic. Even if you just said in punt, let's just take punt, for example. If you watch college football on a Saturday, you'll probably see 5 to 10 different punt formations throughout the course of maybe just a day of watching football. Not even just different formations, whether they have the three bears, whether they have spread, whether they do rugby punt, all kinds of different things that could be happening, sometimes within even the same game. And then you watch the NFL, it is what it is. We're going to line up and we're going to punt the ball. And so, yeah, for him to be able to get back into the college game, see all of these different dynamic formations, and be able to acclimate themselves, I think is very important instead of coming straight from the NFL because this is not the NFL. This is a different thing.
You know my favorite thing about introductory press conferences are for coaches. You get to know a little bit more about what their philosophy is when it comes to whatever their job is doing. I love listening to an offensive coordinator press conference, especially their first one, where you maybe get a little insight as to how they like to run an offense. What are their feelings about certain things when it comes to the philosophical side of running an offense? But for special teams, it's different, right? You work with a lot of different players. Your personnel is going to look different. You maybe have the most diverse personnel of any coach that has to deal with certain players on a day-in, day-out basis. And this will be cut for Jen. What does he think a player needs to have to be successful on special teams?
I think first and foremost, every play matters. So on special teams, your ops are limited because you have more or you have less plays during the game, but then you also have plays that could be a touchback on kickoff or kickoff return that may not be an opportunity to flip the field. So when your chance to affect the game shows up, every play matters, and I'm always ready to make that play. So that mental toughness of the special teams players, that every time I take that field on a special teams play, this could be the play that flips the balance, that gives us a chance to win the game. But that has to be the mindset. There's no plays off. I got to make sure that I'm ready to be my best and compete whatever phase it is when I take the field for special teams.
And if he's good at mastering that message to players, that's when you can maybe see a special teams unit be a top 10 unit in the sport and be a real plus for you, because we've talked about it a lot. If you're not on the field, offense, defense, and you're trying to be, special teams can be your role. How many guys in the NFL get their foot in the door because they're really good at mastering special teams, and how important that could be in a game, right? If he's good at relaying that message, he clearly understands the message, and every special teams coordinator in America at any level understands that importance, right? If you didn't, you wouldn't have the job. But what really can separate good special teams coaches from great ones are the ones who can relay that message and kind of pose this as an opportunity for players to be able to make an impact on a game even when they're not doing it at their desired position.
Yeah, and that's why they have to coach everybody. That's why they have to have relationships with everybody in the building, because you're doing a little bit of recruiting. You might see a guy who is taking second team reps over here on scout team and be like, hey, man, you ever think about being a left up back? He's like, no, not really. Let me show you how you can get on the field. And then you show him, and then that turns into, that snowballs into he make a play on special teams. Oh, now all of a sudden the defense coach is like, where he been all this time? And he's like, yeah, he's been on the scout team the whole time. Now all of a sudden he starts getting reps on defense, and then you build your repertoire like that. So it can happen. You need a coach who can coach everybody and emphasize how important special teams are, because you have limited opportunities.
You think Clayton White kind of maybe took a look over when Mo Brown stuck that poor kid at Kentucky on that kickoff early in the season and been like, can I use him? Come off the edge?
I've seen it happen a lot. It happens more than you think.
I certainly can imagine, especially when you have really good athletes. And, of course, like that's probably in the SEC, right? Everybody has at least a baseline level of athleticism to where they can contribute in this one way or the other. But you mentioned punt returns earlier, and how that is a lot more dynamic at the college level than the NFL level. He talked about that too. This will be cut 7, Jen. This is Coach Smiley talking about punt returns in the NFL versus how they look in college.
There's only one rule difference between college and the NFL when it comes to punt, and that's in the NFL, only the widest two guys can release at the snap. Everybody else has to wait till the punt is kicked. In college, anybody can release at the snap. Everybody can release at the snap. That's the only rule difference, but that's what creates all the different formations that you're able to go to in college. So that opens up a world of possibilities on punt formationally, but then that also opens up all the counters to that on punt return. So that one difference in the rule between college and the NFL, that's where it gets very, very multiple in college. And to be able to not only go through a year at Penn State and see how are we protecting on punt against all these very good special teams in the Big Ten, but how are we attacking when it comes to punt pressure against the different formations we saw during the season.
Yeah, I know I'm going to like this guy because I learned something. But if I can learn something from you, then I'm going to enjoy listening to you talk.
Yeah, a very succinct thing. Again, something that doesn't. It's one rule change, But within that rule change, it gets into multiverses of ways that you can use and attack. And he also said that idea of protecting versus attacking. And when you have somebody like Vakari Swain, you want to be in attack mode.
Because you can bust any play for 6 points right there. And then goes back to his earlier point of talking about how those certain plays can change the tenor of a game. And we certainly saw in the opener last year how a Vakari Swain punt return changed the tenor of the game. Coming up next, we'll continue our series on offensive line play and asking, is it getting worse in college football? Part 3 today, we're going to look at run blocking, how to identify good run blockers, and what it takes to be a good physical run blocker that makes people like David Pollock opine for the past. That's next here in the early game.
Zion Avenue near Abbott Road in Richland County. There is an accident there. Also, I-26 eastbound just after exit 119. And then I-77 southbound at exit 2. We have a report of an accident there. So a few areas to be mindful of. Breezy and mild, 64 today, 65 tomorrow. Some evening showers possible. Rain possible again on Friday as well. And some potential for some heavier rain at times on Thursday night and Friday. Then we get to the weekend, 67 on Saturday, 75 for Sunday. Warming up right now, 46 on 107.5 The Game.
Of our series, David Pollock posed the question, or the take. He didn't pose the question. He had a strong opinion.
Strong take.
Strong take. That offensive line play is softer and in turn is now worse than it used to be. We've already talked about just the premise of that. We talked about yesterday the evaluation. And now I wanted to get to the specifics for part 3 of the run blocking aspect of it. Because if you really break down, you do the sentence tree or the sentence diagram. Remember doing those?
So funny you just said that. I just did a sentence tree the other day. It was unfortunately on clavicular gets brutally frame mocked by ASU frat leader. But that's another story.
That was not a sentence in English.
What on earth? And I'm just thinking you did that on purpose?
You know what? I've gone down the same rabbit hole as Preston Thorne. We have talked about this off air about how none of this makes sense. Unfortunately, I do understand what he said. And I feel a large bit of shame of being able to know that. But when it comes to breaking down the sentence of what David Pollock would say, his whole argument didn't necessarily come from saying that offensive linemen are worse pass protectors now, but that they're worse run blockers. So I kind of wanted to look at that part of this specifically and look at modern college football offensive line play. Are we better or are we worse when it comes to run blocking? What skills do you look for when it comes to finding somebody who can fit a specific run scheme? Because I do think we are now in an age of college football now where we have more variance in run schemes, right? Especially the more football you watch, the more you can point out differences. Like what Georgia Tech did last year is a lot different than like what South Carolina did, just in terms of the scheme part, right? Some teams love pulling guards and getting them into space. There's a lot of, like in the NFL, some of the best running teams in the NFL, like the Detroit Lions, did a lot of duo, right? A lot of split zone, a lot of different types of running schemes. What makes really good run blockers to fit some of those very specific run schemes?
I think it all comes down to, yesterday we talked about the tuchus. We talked about that. So you're going to have the engine to be able to move somebody, and your athletic explosion comes from the backside of your body. They always talk about the front muscles are for the show, the back muscles are for go, right? So the ones in the front, those look good in the mirror, but the ones that make your money are behind you. Your triceps, your buttocks, hamstrings, all those things are the things that really make the money as far as athletic explosion. So that's one. But beside from that, you're going to need footwork in tight spaces. So to be able to be, and this is where it's not necessarily what you would consider the raw athleticism of a defensive back or something like that, but it is a different style of being able to move your feet while also having somebody oppose pressure on you. So there's a lot of different push and pulls that are happening, but you need to have the physical things to do it, but also the athletic ability to move your feet in small spaces.
And one thing I'm always fascinated with watching too is, I'll take two examples here. These are the last two Joe Moore Award winning offensive linemen, or offensive line units, right? And for those who don't know, the Joe Moore Award is given to the best offensive line unit in college football every year. This past year it was given to Iowa, and it is a very much in-your-face running scheme. They will go inside zone, outside zone, a lot of man, but they're big. They're massive. And that's the thing about an Iowa offensive line, is they're always going to be really big. And sometimes they're just bigger than their opponents. Like if you want to look at the best example of this, one of my favorite draft busts of all time, Robert Gallery, was just bigger than everybody at the college level. Well, you're not going to have that size advantage in the NFL, and there were maybe a lot of technical aspects of his game that didn't make him the left tackle that was supposed to be the prized number 2 pick in that draft. But then you look at someone like Army 2 years ago who won the Joe Moore Award. They're always going to be undersized. Army's not getting the 6'7", 320-pound behemoth. They're not getting Caden Proctors. But as a unit, they were able to run block so well. And notice I didn't say pass block. They won that award because of how they run blocked. When it comes to maybe trying to project what someone can be as a run blocker, maybe not just individually, but as a unit, what are things that you kind of have to look at, maybe from a physicality standpoint or just from an athleticism skill point, to be able to translate good run blocking at a higher level than they might have been before?
So 2 athletic tests would be your shuttle runs, whether that's the 20-yard shuttle, the ability to change directions very quickly. And then if you're looking for lifting, it's not going to be your bench or squat, which those are awesome, but it's probably going to be more so your power clean or your hang clean, because that talks about explosiveness throughout the lift. So those are going to be the things that you look for. Those are 2 athletic barometers. That being said, every offensive line scheme is evolved to work with the players that you have. That's the reason why we got to zone schemes, because some coach somewhere was like, okay, my guys can't necessarily hold up at the point of attack. What if we get them moving and have them blocking an area? And then some other coaches, that's how the option comes along. It's like, we can't block somebody. Let's just not even block them and then double team this other guy. Same things that are happening. Then you'll have all these types of scheme things that are happening, whether you're double teaming, you combo, you're getting up to the second level, all of these types of issues. That's why it was so important this year for Kendall Briles or whoever to be in place before you went out to the transfer portal, because I think you have to go get guys that you feel like have the physical characteristics that can fit your particular scheme. You're not trying to match dudes who don't have those characteristics with a different type of scheme.
So let's just look at Kendall Briles, right? He likes to do a lot of up-tempo stuff. That's something he did in different ways at Arkansas and TCU. We've played the clip before of him talking about at a coach's clinic about how important it is to use tempo and how he uses that to kind of fuel whatever it is he wants to do on offense. When he took this job and it came to building this offensive line, what are maybe some tells that he could look at when he's looking at ECU film for at Poku's tape, or he's watching Jakarius Peak's tape at NC State, or any of the guys from Purdue that
Never Nervous Hank Purvis,
right? Like what are the type of things that you're looking for?
So those are 2 perfect examples. My guy from ECU, what's his name again?
Poku.
Yeah. We know ECU ran a very up-tempo, fast offense. That's something that he's used to. That's something that he can deal with, the amount of plays, the type of plays that he's running. So he's already used to that. Never Nervous Hank Purvis has not run this type of scheme, and he's very close to a biggin, right? He is a biggin. I think we quantified him.
Tipping the scales.
Yes. And so he's going to have to figure out how he plays in this level. I imagine that's going to involve him losing some weight, and getting into a little bit more of a playing shape to play in this up-tempo type of thing. But one, you would probably look for if they've run this type of offense before. But 2, can they get out and move in space? Can they get out? Or are they just somebody that wants to just lean on you and do that? So that's going to be something that we'll see in the spring. But my first indicator would be, like, have you done this type of thing before?
Coming up next, something that we have done before. That's give out winners for today's show. As always, brought to you by the Golden Spur. We'll give you the highlights of today's show by giving you winners coming up next. Monday as we give you our winners of today's show, brought to you by the Golden Spur. And we had a lot of fun in the first hour of this show talking about the clip of Shane Beamer saying, we knew we would have a void, or had an inkling that we'd have a void for a couple of weeks. So my first winner, brought to you by the Golden Spur, mailing it in. Because everybody does. If you're about to take another job or you're not going to be at the job you're at for a little bit, there is a serious element of mailing it in that we have all done. You may not want to admit it publicly, but deep down inside, you weren't giving it 110%. That there's a little cruise control that happens in the last little bit. And whether or not your coworkers took notice, irrelevant, but you nailed it.
Yeah, it just happens, man, because they just start talking about next year's projections or the next thing. You're like, I'm not worried about that, man. What's for lunch? Because I'm not gonna be here.
You're like, y'all have fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. What you guys are talking about.
We had a lot of special teams talk today, and we talked about a player who made his mark in special teams. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Blythewood legend Justin Bethel, 12-year pro, 3-year All-Pro. Presbyterian legend also.
Okay.
But Justin made a career out of being the special teams guy. In fact, he got on the draft boards for his special teams performance against Clemson when he was at PC. Made the All-Pro team when he was with Arizona with the Cardinals for being a special teams guy. Had a 12-year career primarily as a special teams dude. So shout out to Justin Bethel, Blythewood legend.
You know what? I'll just in that same vein, Tyler Wolf. Because my high school, we don't produce football players.
Okay.
Not a football school. It's the largest non-metropolitan school in the state of Tennessee. We cannot play football. Atrocious. It is embarrassing how bad at the sport of football we are for a school our size. But we did have one player who walked on at the University of Tennessee and became an impact player his senior year because he was just a special teams guy. One of the best special teams guys in the SEC, Tyler Wolf. And no one else is going to know who that is. But I remember watching because he was like three years older than me and watching and being like, they suck. But he's getting playing time, and he's one of us. And he's actually playing SEC snaps because he got in on special teams. Was never going to play offense or defense. Got in on special teams and was a contributor.
I have to continue down this Justin Bethel path. Justin, shout out to you. Like I said, a legend. Culinary arts, because Justin Bethel was better at culinary arts in high school than he was at football. And there was often struggles of like, hey, Justin has to come to football practice. And then, Chef Turner, rest in peace, was like, no, but he's got to finish making this creme brulee that he's doing in culinary arts.
But he was good, though.
No, yeah, shout out.
Justin can whip it up, is what you're saying.
If you look at his profile, football is last on his list, along with culinary artist and musician, because he's also a very good drummer.
Oh, wow.
Some people just get it all.
Yeah.
And then when you look at his picture, like, oh, and this dude is drop dead gorgeous, too. How do you get to be this lucky?
You can't have all of this.
Come on, man. Save something for somebody else.
There's got to be a skeleton in your closet.
Come on, man.
Somewhere.
Great dude.
Those type of people. I will say, though, out of all of those things, like maybe being musically inclined or athletic or being a good cook, nothing hits better to the boosting of your ego than when you make food. Someone's like, "Oh, this is really good."
That is a good moment.
Top 5 feeling.
Solid moment
on planet Earth, maybe. At least it is for me because I made a Cajun seafood pasta last week. I'm still thinking about.
Still got it.
It's one of those like I'll get a recipe and usually I'll mess it up somewhere one way or the other and it's edible, but I nailed it. It was good off the bat. And I got this is really good.
Yeah, typically I can get something the first time, and then the second time I don't ever get it quite there.
Oh no,
it's like I don't know if I'm trying to recreate the moment, but the first time I'm just in flow and I'm making it, and then the second time I try to recreate it, and it's like you didn't quite reach those heights.
We have a consistency problem, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're working on consistency.
Yes. Yeah.
Another winner for today's show, nerds, because we talked about Jeremy Fowler's piece on ESPN about what other players in the league had to say about it's GMs too, but like the players was one I found interesting about some of the current college players that are going into the NFL draft. And Leonard Williams made a point to discuss the player he's most intrigued with is Fernando Mendoza. Now, Leonard Williams played in the league for over a decade now, but we make fun of Fernando Mendoza for a lot of like the goofy, nerdy stuff. But he cited that his genuine personality is going to go over really well in a locker room. And that type of leadership is valuable when your teammates know that you're authentic, that you are exactly who you say you are. And you are Denny Green in terms of you are who we thought you were. But the fact that he is such a big nerd and that players love it because it's genuine and they genuinely play behind him and they will follow him. That's what great leaders can do. I think it's a big plus. It's a win for the nerds.
Yeah, because you have to end up being who you are. I always think about that when I've seen so many different teachers, and the best teachers are just who they are. And it can be super weird. You walk into their classroom like, oh, this dude has lightsabers around here or whatever the case is. And it's like, oh, he's a dork. And the students love it.
Yeah.
And that's just who you have to be. It doesn't work when you're not the person who you say you are. Winner in this instance, you said nerds, right? Because you were talking about Fernando Mendoza. I'm going to go back to that same segment and say company man, Nick Emenwari.
Yes.
Because when asked about who he liked in the draft, he went straight to his hometown in Irmo, and he went straight to his university. That is a man who is repping for the set. Great job, Nick.
Immediately talked about Brandon Cisse from the same program. Wasn't even a teammate of Brandon, so you can't say, oh, you just picked your teammate. No, wasn't a teammate.
Company man.
Picked the university that he went to, and then mentioned Antonio Williams, who played at Dutch Fork, so he had to play against him when Nick was at Irmo and Antonio was at Dutch Fork. And then at South Carolina and Clemson, they are career rivals, but he's shouting out the hometown of Irmo, South Carolina. There is an article on ESPN where an NFL player is talking about other players from Irmo, South Carolina on there.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, too. It will be, too, here coming up.
Antonio's going to be drafted. Maybe not as high as I thought he'd be at the beginning of the season, but that's a guy that, like, if he stays healthy, that's the thing in college. I mean, he's only healthy every other year at Clemson, but, like, the skill set's there. That's a guy. He's going to help out an NFL team.
Absolutely.
Once he gets drafted. So, also, winner Irmo, South Carolina, to get specific.
The okra strut.
Oh, dude. Underrated vegetables, okra.
Really?
I love okra.
Whoa.
Fried okra specifically. If I have an option at a restaurant where I can eat fried okra, I'm going to take it.
Whoa.
I love okra.
Okay.
Sucker for it.
Okay.
I'm very specific and very particular with my vegetables. I love squash. I love cauliflower. I love okra. I'm very indifferent on, like, broccoli and other, like, popular ones that everybody else likes.
Okra. Unexpected winner.
Yeah. Big okra guy. Also, cauliflower rice, great carb replacement. Well, frozen bag of it in my freezer right now. Those are winning vegetables. We have winning radio hosts, Tyler Head and Jack Veltri, with the extra point, and they are coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow morning.